The Portfolio Composer, episode 207.
You're listening to the Portfolio Composer podcast with your host and coach, Garrett Hope, where he teaches you what it takes to master the business end of writing music through mindset, marketing, and business skills. Make sure to sign up for the newsletter at theportfoliocomposer.com for exclusive offers, business insights, and information not shared on the podcast. And now, for this episode of The Portfolio Composer.
I looked at my paycheck as a teacher and went, how hard is this to replicate? I'm making $42,000 a year, working 90 hours a week, and after taxes, it's $36,000 a year. I could go to Burger King and make this. So I wasn't worried about filling the void of the paycheck. What you're worried about is the fear of the unknown of, will I be good at it? Will I be successful? But generally, if you're in the music space, the paycheck is not your greatest obstacle. The greatest barrier to entry is self-doubt and fear. And once you are willing to accept that if the worst thing that happens is I go back and do this, then the fear, it's manageable.
This episode is brought to you by Dorico, the music notation software from Steinberg. Just released, Dorico Pro 2 is a major new version, including features for musicians working in film and TV music and in jazz, rock, and pop. Steinberg have also released Dorico Elements, a new entry-level application that packs all of the essential power of Dorico Pro into a simple, streamlined package that is ideal for those getting started. Find out more later in the show. And welcome to episode 207 of the Portfolio Composer podcast. Today's guest is Scott Lang, a music educator who decided he wanted to find a way to reach more people at a deeper level than what he could do just in the classroom. He still has a passion for mentoring, leadership training, and working with students and educators, and I hope you get a lot out of this episode because he helps us realize how what we're doing as musicians, especially as composers, is already entrepreneurial. We already have the skill set necessary to take the leap into building our businesses. All right, enjoy. Welcome to the Portfolio Composer podcast, Scott.
Thank you. I appreciate it. It's a joy to be here.
Yeah, I'm really excited to speak with you. Our mutual friend of the double bass world, Jason Heath, introduced us and said, Garrett, you got to speak to Scott. He's doing things that are right up your alley, and he's an interesting guy. And so thank you, Jason, for connecting us. Scott, let's start with your story a little bit. I understand that you were a music educator before you moved into leadership training. Can you tell us more about that?
Sure, absolutely. So I spent 16 years in the classroom. And what I did was I taught 10 years in inner city, low-income SES school, and then decided I wanted to be an administrator in the school and decided very quickly that I would rather jump off a bridge than do that again. Because I was good at the job, but there was no joy in the job. Everybody was angry in that, the parents were angry because I disciplined their child. The child was angry because he got disciplined. The teacher was angry because I didn't discipline enough. And I had come from a world where joy was in every class period and in every day, and not every moment, but being a music teacher is filled with joyous moments. And I went to a profession where I had the skills but had no joy. And I knew within 6 weeks that I did never want to do that again. And so I told my superintendent I was leaving and was likely going to leave the education field. And he said, don't do it. Let me find you another music teaching position. And would you take it? And I said, sir, sure. So I went back and I taught for 4 more years at a different school and had a phenomenal experience. And then, long story short, because no one's interested in bios, but I had been training kids in leadership wherever I taught, my friends, students, and I literally had been thinking about, well, what's next? And Tim had put the bug in my ear, Tim Lotzenheiser, and I know that you know Tim. And you got to think about this. And I was teaching at a summer camp, and the person who was supposed to do all the leadership work, it wasn't Tim, missed their flight, and they were panicking. And what do we do? And I said, I'll take the kids, 400 kids, 3 hours. I got it. No problem. And at the end of that, I had 5 band directors come up and say, would you come work with my band? And I went, oh, this is real. This could actually happen. And so I just decided to take the leap because there are many deficits to being a music educator in terms of professional growth and professional opportunity, because it's really not a horizontal field, it's a vertical field. Not a vertical field, it's a horizontal field in that if you're a really good teacher, you get to rot there for 30 years. If you're a really bad teacher, you get to rot there there's no upward mobility if you're good. as opposed to the business world where a teller becomes an assistant head teller, then a head teller, then an assistant branch. They get to diversify their skill set and portfolio of work, and you don't get to do that as a teacher. And so I was kind of thinking about, well, what's next? And one of the benefits of being an educator is that there's a school on every street corner. You will never want for work if you're good at what you do. And so it's a low pay, but low risk profession. The worst thing that could ever happen to me is I take a year off and go try something new, and I go back and teach again. So I just took the leap. I just decided, if not now, when am I ever going to do this? And I took the leap, and it worked out. And 16 years later, and a couple of right turns, and here I am.
Wow. You were a music major in college, and you were in music every day, and so are most of the people who listen to this podcast. And there's a mentality for musicians, and I know most of the listeners are composers, but as I think this is true across the board, where there's a right way and a wrong way to do things. And that leads to a lot of fear when you're trying these new endeavors, because the idea of that safe, secure paycheck is very attractive. How did you make that mental leap?
Well, so first of all, to everyone listening, if you have a music degree, you've already done the hardest thing there is to do in life other than raise a child, period. There is no degree program in college that has a higher failure rate than a music major rate. And the thing that's pretty interesting when you think about it, people are always like, well, it's just so hard. And I'm like, you already passed the test. You got through a degree program where I went to school, Arizona State University. A bachelor's degree is 124 hours. A bachelor's degree in music education is 146.
Right.
I technically graduated with a master's. Oh, and by the way, every class met every single day. Oh, and by the way, every class was 1 credit. So where you're taking 15 hours and you're going to school every other day for 3 hours, I'm taking 17 hours. It's 11 classes. I get there at 7 a.m. and I leave at 9 o'clock at night, 5 days a week. So if you have a music degree, you've already done the hardest thing you can do. Everything you will do other than raise a child is easier after that. So if you have a fear of starting a business, just turn around and look at your diploma and say, it's time to go. Giddy up.
Mm-hmm. And what was surprising to you as you made that journey? Were you already there in that mindset?
No, the way I looked at it was simply this, is I looked at my paycheck as a teacher and went, okay, how hard is this to replicate? I'm making $42,000 a year, working 90 hours a week. And, after taxes, it's $36,000 a year. I could go to Burger King and make this. So I wasn't worried about filling the void of the paycheck. What you're worried about is the fear of the unknown of, will I be good at it? Will I be successful? People talk about the paycheck, and the paycheck's a very real thing. I'm not trying to minimize someone's fear, but generally, if you're in the music space, that the paycheck is not your greatest obstacle. The greatest barrier to entry is self-doubt and fear. And once you are willing to accept that if the worst thing that happens is I go back and do this, then the fear is dissipated to a point where it's manageable. But, and I was just having breakfast with a friend, and we were talking about that you have to let the math do the work for you. You can't say it's about the paycheck. Have you really taken a calculator and looked at what are my expenses, what are my liabilities, and what's my paycheck, and what's after taxes, and what does it take to live? And then you look at it, and if you're coming from the C-suite office at a multinational corporation, that's a real fear. If you're coming from a multi-purpose room at an elementary school, I doubt that it's as real as you think it is.
That makes total sense. And I'm glad you said it too, because you're right. Musicians have already done the hard work, and we don't need to be that afraid.
So I do want to say this, and it's real easy to say this having made the leap, and it worked out well for me. But the thing that I came to is I was looking at my career, and the way I was situated, I was in a high school only district, which means I couldn't do a middle school. I couldn't do an elementary school. I was in a state where if you leave a district, you go back to year 5. So I was literally looking at a situation where I had to do high school marching band for the rest of my life. And once I decided I can't be 68 years old and riding a Friday night school bus, once I realized that I wasn't going to be able to do this forever, I realized I shouldn't do it one more day. Because once you've decided that this isn't my forever job, then it shouldn't be your job anymore, because you're wasting one day doing something that doesn't give you joy. So once you reach that epiphanal moment, and it may be a long process or a short process, but Every day that you spend doing the job you know you're not going to do for the rest of your life is one less day that you're not doing the job that you are going to do for the rest of your life. And we're so entrenched in music as a part of our identity, our ethos. And I don't think bankers feel that way. And I don't think necessarily that marketers feel that way. And I don't think that managers feel that way. But when you're a musician, it's a part of your ethos. It's a part of your identity. And again, a fear. It's not a checkbook thing. It's a fear thing that you're giving up your identity.
Yeah.
If I leave music, I'm leaving who I am. And that's the scariest part. So, for me, I didn't ever want to leave music. What I wanted to leave was a day-to-day classroom. And so I'm still a music educator and will always be till the day I die, a music educator. I just changed the way I do it. And that's where you get that verticality that you don't get as a classroom teacher, in that I can start a nonprofit, I can build a new branch, I can try a new summer camp, because I get to experiment and grow and evolve with my skill sets because I have that opportunity now. And so, for the folks out there listening, music is a part of our lives and music is important to us, but the classroom or the composition doesn't have to define us as a person. And there are many ways to be a music educator. Start your own kinder music program, your own private lesson studio, do consulting, write drill, program coordinate. There's many different ways to be involved in. You go to work for a publisher, work at your local music store. That music can still be a part of your life, but it doesn't necessarily have to define your professional career path.
Oh, I'm so glad you said that. And that's part of my story too. When I left academia, pursuing an academic job, to be more precise, I took my same passion for teaching and mentorship and everything I was doing in the classroom and just found new ways to do it that increased my monetization of those skills too.
Well, and your podcast, I mean, what we're doing right now.
Yeah, that's part of it.
Yeah.
That's exactly part of it.
And that's the beauty of it, this is what we're doing right now is still music education.
Yes.
But you're doing it in a way that speaks to your passions and your interests and your skill sets. And you find a way to make it your profession. Because the bottom line is, if you're good at something, you can monetize it. And that's true of anything.
Right.
If you're a really good street sweeper, you can be a very affluent street sweeper. If you're a really good baker, you can be a very affluent baker. But you have to be good at something. You have to enjoy doing it, because, there's no value in being miserable at your job. I don't care how much you make. I don't care if you're a C-suite 7-figure executive. If you're miserable every day, it's not worth it.
Right. I agree. So what are you working on right now? What kind of things are you building?
Oh, there's a couple different things I'm building, and that's what suits my ADD mentality. So one of the things we're really excited about, my team and I have just announced we're doing a music education entrepreneurial workshop. And basically what it was, believe it or not, it kind of came out of nowhere. My team and I, we do newsletters and weekly events, and we've been doing some consulting for some other businesses. And we had such a response to a newsletter we wrote on burnout that it really overwhelmed us. And people talking about, I'm just so fried. And the thing is, it's not that they don't love what they're doing. It's that it's the only thing they have to do. And so we decided that we were going to take our passion for marketing and our passion for this space called music education, and we're going to create a 2-day event that will help people find and grow their small business in the music education related space. And so what we're doing is in June 9th, 10th, and 11th, or June 10th, 11th, and 12th in Chandler, Arizona, we are running a 1.5-day workshop that will help anyone start or grow their small business in a music education related space. And so if you're looking for something just to sharpen your skills and your mind, it's a great place to be. If you're looking to take a little side hustle that you have, like I write drill for 2 bands, and you'd like to grow it into a full-time business, that's the place to be. And if you are in this place and in this space, but are looking to do it better and be more efficient and effective, we've assembled a really unique and highly qualified group of people to help you do that. And people can learn more about it at musicedentrepreneur.com. But we think it's going to be I know of no other event like this that I've ever heard of or seen. And so it's again, it's that risk that we talked about at the top of the podcast. But when I look at it and go, well, if it's a huge success, amazing, we've helped a lot of people. And if it's not a huge success, what's the worst thing that happened? We built a website and we went out there and gave something a shot, and we can say we did it. So again, we're really excited about it, and you can learn more about it at musicedentrepreneur.com.
That's fantastic. That sounds like a wonderful weekend. In your opinion, what are some of the core things that you train music educators to begin thinking entrepreneurially?
Well, the thing is, they have to understand that they're already an entrepreneur. They just don't know it. So about 15 years ago, just as an exercise in, well, probably more than anything, vanity, I took my high school band program, and it had 200 kids in it, and I started treating it like a business. So I got a little Excel spreadsheet out, and I went, okay, I have 200 kids, and we'll call them employees, and they make minimum wage. And at that time, it was $3.85 an hour, whatever it was. And we rehearsed 20 hours a week. So I started doing the math, and then my section leaders, they'd be mid-level management. I'm going to pay them $10 an hour, and my staff is going to receive $15 an hour. And I have volunteers, and I don't pay them, but I credit them on my spreadsheet. And I'm the CEO and this. And what was interesting is at the end of that exercise, what I realized is I was a $4 million company. And that isn't including sales, facilities, equipment. It was just in employee pay. So I called up my local chamber of commerce, and I, at the time, was living in Tempe, Arizona, and still do. And I said, hey, I'm an undefined business, and I'm going to give you some numbers. I want you to tell me a little bit about where I am. And I gave him all the numbers, and the lady said, you would be the number 3 employer in the city of Tempe behind Arizona State University and the Banner Hospital System. The number 3 employer in the city.
With only 200 employees?
With 200 employees.
Wow.
And I know it blew me away. And obviously, we're not making a product, and we're not selling it and whatnot. But you get the idea of that you are managing, if you are a music educator, regardless of the space, you are managing a large scale operation. Your auditorium was $6.5 to $12 million to build, depending on features and size. Your instrument inventory is probably worth well in excess of $600,000. Your uniforms, concert marching is 120. You start to understand that you've probably got 7,000 square feet under your control in terms of actual real estate and facilities to manage. And you start to understand that you are an entrepreneur, and you have metrics, by the way. You're a business. It's just not a P&L statement. It's not profit and loss. That your metrics of success are measured differently and quantitatively using a different scale, but it's still a business. And so I really believe that music educators are uniquely suited to be entrepreneurs. And they might be risk averse, but that's a strange characteristic to have, to be standing on a stage performing in front of people, because that is the riskiest thing you'll ever do. And anyone who's ever stood on stage, and everyone who listens to this already has, if you can do that, with an instrument in your hand, standing there naked to the world to critique, you can certainly try an idea and see it through to fruition to see if there's a demand or need for it.
Absolutely. So are you finding that the people who are most interested in this program are educators at the high school level, or are you seeing this from elementary through to university?
We're seeing a cross section, but it's for very different reasons. So an example is I have, high school band directors who are reaching out and saying, I do this service, whether it's lessons or I write drill, and I'd like to expand it. And I could see myself moving into this to, elementary school educators or arrangers, and saying, I want to get a little more income, and it's a great use of my summer. So it's supplementary. To college professors who are saying, I'm teaching a class in this, and I'd like to know how to better market that class. I would like to, it's an online class, and I get X amount of profits, and I want to grow that. Or I'm on my tenure. I'm done with tenure, and I'm going on a sabbatical, and I'd like to use that year to start to a small business. So when I retire, I have something to go back to. And then the retiree said, okay, I have this wealth of knowledge. And believe it or not, that's been an interesting segment that's reached out to us. I have this wealth of knowledge, and I'd like to help other teachers, but I don't know how to set this up. So it's really a cross spectrum, but they're doing it for very different reasons.
Right. I can see that. And so this kind of falls under your larger umbrella of being a music educator.
It is. And so, when I talked about the verticalness of a profession, and so I taught for 10 years, and then I thought, vertical, I'm going to go be administrator. And then I taught for 5 more years and thought, I'm going to go do this leadership thing. And then after 10 years, I thought, I'm going to do this passion project called Be Part of the Music. And now I've been doing that for 6 years. And now I'm starting to do some consultant work in the music education space because I see so much of the landscape as a part of what I do. My point in sharing that is not a vanity exercise. My point is, every 5 to 7 years, I think we need new challenges and we need new opportunities and we need things to stoke our fires and stimulate us. And so this is another way to look at this music education landscape and say, what's something new that would keep me engaged and interested? And it's talking to people about the business of music education. And 5 years ago, it was talking about the nonprofit part of music education. And 10 years before that, it was talking about the leadership part. So it's changing my role inside the same ecosphere. And for me, and I can't say that for everyone, but for me, that's what keeps me engaged and energized and enthused.
This episode is sponsored by Dorico, the future of scoring. And we want to feature real Dorico users so you can know that real composers out in the world today are using Dorico to make their careers happen.
My name is Rode Gustafsson, and I am a publisher with my company Recapo Edition. I was one of the first to buy Dorico. I was watching the release on YouTube, and I think it was within a couple of hours I bought Dorico. I have no regrets whatsoever. I bought it and I never looked back. It's my dream program. I am really a fan of the engrave mode and with the master pages and how the philosophy of music frames and text frames that you can combine both music and text on the setup that you want. And that's a very important feature for me as a publisher. My workflow has improved a lot, and it sounds nerdy, but it's a joy to work in the program. As soon as you open the program, you say, yes, now I want to create some good music. I think it's a big competitor. There are some features that is not included yet, but I can work 100% of my time in Dorico. And if there is something that I need to do that Dorico doesn't have, I can always do it graphically. I just have to give my congratulations to the team. I am a part of the Facebook group. The Dorico has its own group. The community around it, it's such full of love. And if I have any question, or if the community has any, you just go to Facebook and write, hi, can you do this? Or I can't really find this feature. And almost immediately someone is writing back an answer. I would absolutely recommend Dorico to everybody. I already do that to my colleagues and fellow musicians. And to those who are not sure whether they are the right fits for Dorico, I always say, try to download. It's free for 1 month. Just go ahead, write in some music, and I'm convinced that you won't regret it. It will improve the quality of your music, especially if you're a composer. The output, the raw output, when you just put in the music without editing, it looks beautiful right from the start.
The kind folks at Dorico have set up a special web page so you can go and download a free 30-day trial copy of Dorico. So go and do that. Have been using the program and I'm absolutely in love with it. Go to dorico.com/TPC. Tell me more about this Be Part of the Music stuff.
So Be Part of the Music, it's near and dear to my heart like nothing I've ever done. It's basically what we did is we found out, I created a product as part of my business called Be Part of the Band. And it was about getting more kids involved in high school band. And what I realized is that music educators are phenomenal teachers, but they're not really good recruiters and they're not really good at marketing. And even if they were, they don't have the time to do it. So we put it out there and it sold like hotcakes. And it was great. And I was talking to Jeff Connor, who's with the Boston Brass, and we were on the MEA circuit, spending weeks together at various MEA conventions. And he said, "What's next?" I said, "Oh gosh, you know what really needs to be next? It needs to be elementary school. We need to get more kids involved in band in elementary school." And by the way, all our resources are free; they're 100% free. And we raised the money from corporate sponsors, and my team and I put in some money to create it. And he said, "Well, why don't you do it?" And I said, "Well, it's really not my space. And I'm a high school guy." And, excuse after excuse. And I'll never forget it. He looked at me and called me on my BS and said, "Well, if not you, who? And if not now, when?"
Mm.
So I pick up the phone. I called my team the next morning. I said, "All right, we've kicked this around. It's time to do it." And I said, "But here's the kicker is it has to be free or it doesn't work. I've thought about this all night. It has to be free." So we created Be Part of the Band, and it was a huge success. And you can still see it now at bepartoftheband.com. And I was at a convention at Midwest, and I was approached by the CEO of NAMM. His name is Joe Lamond, and he said, "Hey, we've been following your work for a year." And I said, "Wow, that's really cool." He goes, "We really like what you're doing. What's next?" And I said, "Nothing. I've got a family to feed and a job to do. And we've done our pro bono work." And he said, "If I helped you raise the funds, what do you know what would be next?" I said, "Yeah, it'd be called Be Part of the Music, a total recruitment retention solution, K-12. We will take them from the moment they walk in the door. We'll show them the instruments. We'll get them in a group. We'll keep them in middle school. We'll keep them in high school, and we'll get them all the way through graduation day. Recruitment and retention solutions for all music education." And he said, "I'll help if you'll do it." And so it is now in year 7 of our very crazy journey called Be Part of the Music. And you can see it at www.bepartofthemusic.org. That's www.bepartofthemusic.org. When you go there, click Music Educator, and it will take you to the back end. And what you'll see is we have everything from instrument demonstration videos to ensemble explanation videos to parent videos to kid videos. We have documents that you can use in Spanish and English. And the whole concept is that let us do what we do best. We'll do all the marketing for you. So you can do what you do best, is teach. And the way we create is you can scrub everything so it looks like it's yours. And so to give you an idea, we just launched, I think, what is maybe my favorite program ever. And it's called Build Your Own Personalized Web Page. So what we do is if you go to bpotm.org/register. So if you go to BPOTM, or maybe it's bepartofthemusic.org, register, and you fill out a few simple questions, and my name, my school, my instrument, my color scheme of my school, and a welcome message. My email address takes about 2.5 minutes. You do that, and then you hit submit, and it creates a custom web page for your program, preloaded with all the content, all the appropriate videos in your school colors with your school name on, and information capture forms that when parents fill it out, it goes directly to your inbox. And so it really, within 2 minutes, you can have your own customized recruitment and retention web page that looks like it's branded and created completely by you, but we did it for you. And it's 100% free.
Wow. So you're basically doing some white label stuff. You're creating the content and letting them brand it, essentially. How are you then recouping your costs?
Well, so let me answer, first of all, this question. Do you want to hear an interesting story?
I would love to hear an interesting story.
Okay, our listeners, are you ready to have your mind blown? Here's what happened. We went out and we found just an incredibly generous group of sponsors. Everyone from Yamaha to Jupiter Instruments to Alfred Publications to Smart Music. They were great. We were approached by a music education startup about a year ago, and they came to us and said, "We love what you're doing. We need to get our brand out there. We would like to double your budget so you can do more good in the world, um, and and help more kids and help us get our word out there. But you need to make us the sole sponsor." So about 14 months ago, we went to all our sponsors and said, "Please, please let us do this. You've been phenomenal, but they're going to let us do double the amount of good and hire staff and really take this to the next level, like this personalized recruitment webpage program." And our sponsors were fantastic. They said, "Absolutely, this is what's good for the profession. It's good for kids." And I can't credit them enough. And we were doing insanely good work and doing cool stuff like this program that I'm talking to you about. And we got a call about 5 months ago in the middle of November, and the venture capitalist that was funding the music ed startup was running a $200 million Ponzi scheme.
Oh, no.
And the FBI seized all of his 9 businesses, only one of which is music education related, seized all of his 9 businesses, all of his assets, and everything dried up in a second. And so we have been without funding for the past 6 months and are on life support and scrapping to try and put the model back together that will allow us to continue to do this work. So like in life and business, sometimes you get a curveball, and sometimes the curveballs are good, and sometimes the curveballs are bad, and you just put your head down and you keep working. So that's what we're doing. And again, if you want to see what we're doing, and especially the recruitment webpage, go to bepartofthemusic.org, choose Music Educator, and scroll down. We have other offering. We have about 50,000 parents receiving our monthly newsletter. It's just some really cool stuff. And we're not going to let this moment stop us. We're going to rise above it and go around it and go through it and find a way to move forward. So it's an interesting time.
Wow, that's crazy. Well, you'll get it. You'll get that support back, or you'll find a new path, I'm sure.
Well, we will, because that's what you do in life.
Yep.
You know, when life throws you, I the old expression, life, you make lemonade when you get lemons. But, I look at people who have real challenges in life. I mean, people who are sudden stroke victims, or people who have, who get a diagnosis of cancer, or people who lose someone they love. And I look at this and say, this is, in the overall spectrum, and I share this and hope it's of some value to your listeners, is when this happened, after you get over the 5 stages of grief and death, Kubler-Ross, you realize there's 3 circles of, pardon my language, hell that are going on right now. Mm-hmm. Level 1 is the retiree couple that lost their entire life savings. Level 2 are the employees who worked at his 9 companies, the 79 employees who just lost their jobs before Christmas. Our loss pales in comparison to those 2 losses. So let's just keep it in perspective. Let's figure it out. Let's move forward.
Yeah. Wow, that's crazy. Well, I love asking this one question here of most of the guests that come on the show. And so I want to ask you it too, because I think your answer could be really interesting. But if there's one thing the listener of this podcast could do today, some actionable piece of advice to move their career forward, what would you say?
I'd say believe in yourself, and don't for a second do anything that will make you live a life of regret. That you can do anything you choose to do, because I really believe that you'll rise to whatever level that you need to rise to. If there's a recital next week, you'll figure out a way to learn the piece. There's a concert tonight, you'll woodshed the part. If there's a contest in 3 weeks, you'll figure out how to get your clarinets to sound better, or work around by doubling it in the saxes to make it sound better. If you're a composer and you have a deadline, you find a way to get that composition done. And doing this teaches you that you will rise to the occasion. So whatever that obstacle is, you have to believe in yourself and believe that you will rise to the moment. Otherwise, you will end up living a life of regret.
That's great advice. Thank you, Scott.
Well, take it for what it's worth.
So you've given us several websites here. We've got musicedentrepreneur.com, bepartoftheband.com, bepartofthemusic.org.
Yeah, and from there, you can resource the orchestra version, the band version, the middle school. You can resource everything. If you just go to bepartofthemusic.org, you can see our website project. You can see our parent newsletter. You can see all our documents. So bepartofthemusic.org is the magic URL that you want to see, even if just to keep in touch with what's going on in music education.
Great. All right. So listeners, Music Ed Entrepreneur Workshop is coming up. So get on that fast if you're interested. And there's also scottlang.net.
And that's my real business. That's my leadership, where I travel around the country and teach leadership workshops and do teacher in services. And that's where you can, and if you're interested, I do a weekly blurb, a newsletter, a blog, and it's usually pretty snarky and pretty fun and interesting and sarcastic. So if you're one of those people that likes that sort of thing, sign up for that, and it'll make you think different about music and this ecosphere that we live in. Because it's, the thing is, and I'll share this last thought, is it is a fairly large ecosphere, and people talk about being a small one, and it's not. When you're talking about everything from general music to the Michael Jackson catalog, to Orff instruments, to choir, to barbershop, to marching band, it really is literally a multi-billion dollar business. But the beauty of that is, and my theory, not necessarily the right one, but my theory is, all you got to do is carve out a little space. Be the biggest fish in the smallest pond you can find. And you will be able to live a very productive, fruitful, and successful life. And you will be able to grow a very large business by finding a very small pond. If you do intimate arrangements for female elderly voices in the barbershop quartet genre, you can be rich beyond your wildest dreams doing that, because you have no idea how many sweet Adeline groups are out there. Don't try and be the jack of all trades. Be the Jill to one trade.
I wish we did have our cameras on, because I'm smiling so broadly right now. This is something that I preach over and over, but I use the terms finding your niche. But you've said it, it's the same thing. It's narrow down, find the people who are interested in what you want to do, and it's easier.
Riches and niches is the old expression.
Exactly.
And I believe that. And, it's funny because people want to think and naturally think broad. And I can't remember, it was a marketing guru that I subscribed to 10 years ago. And I got to build an email list. I got to have lots of listeners. I got to have this, and I got to work on this. And he made an interesting comment. He said, an email list of 20,000 that buy nothing is less valuable than an email list of one that buys something.
Yes.
And so we get enamored by the vanity metric of, I do this and speak to this audience. Really, the only metric that matters is, are you able to sell?
Yeah. And
that is a very different metric sometimes than the size of your list. And I call them vanity metrics and meaning metrics. And so find a meaning metric, that there are 30 people in my county that are willing to hire me to come out and do a clinic. That is more important. That list of 30 is more important than a list of 3,000 that never engages with you.
Yes, exactly. All right. Well, I think we should wrap it up. This has been a great conversation. Scott, thank you so much for your time.
Oh, the pleasure was all mine. And I really appreciate you reaching out to me. And thanks to Jason. Love him. Love Jason Heath and his Double Bass podcast. You should check it out. And good luck to everyone out there. Follow your passion and your dream, because if you don't, I don't know who's gonna.
Exactly. This episode of The Portfolio Composer has been supported by Dorico, the music notation software from Steinberg. Whether you're a composer or arranger, a teacher or student, working in music engraving and publishing, or working in producing music for media such as film, TV, and games, Dorico is the tool for you. Dorico comes in two versions: Dorico Pro for professionals and Dorico Elements, providing the perfect introduction to the world of scoring. Whichever version you choose, you'll be using software packed full of smart features that produces beautiful results completely automatically, allowing you to get music on the stand more quickly than with any other software. You can bring music into Dorico from your existing software using Music XML or MIDI, and you can try Dorico out completely free of charge for 30 days by downloading a trial version from dorico.com/TPC. Try it today.